So my name is Scott Gibson. I'm farm approximately 3,000 acres just northeast of Jonesboro in Craighead County. And I've been involved in agriculture for over 30 years. And today we're just addressing some different aspects of corn production and the uses of it. So the different types of corn, and I'll kind of go about that as far as the different types of kernels. For the most part, there's 6 different types of kernels. 3 that are common in North America, and that being field corn, which is, the majority of what is grown. Then you have sweet corn, which is, what you're going to eat at a restaurant, what you throw on the grill. And then of course popcorn, and we all know where we get our popcorn. But then also there is a flint and a flour type of corn kernel. Those are common in South America. And then in China there is a waxy corn kernel. Okay, so the question is, how many kernels are on an ear of corn? And so, of course, if you want to take the time to count each one, more power to you. But just this is going to kind of be of a broad answer, but basically you're looking at your, your height of the rows, and then the number of rows around the cob. One thing for certain on a cob is it is always going to have an even number of rows of grain around that cob. And so typically those numbers, obviously you want them to be higher, both length and diameter, but typically it's going to be anywhere from 14 up to 22. Not looking, but I'm going to say this one is probably a 16 to 18 rows around. And then there again, depending on conditions, but most, I've counted some this year and they'll be in the mid-30s as far as depth in each row. So, doing the math, you're going to end up somewhere in the mid-upper 500s on this cob. And so, like I say, obviously you want more. A related fact, there is 56 pounds of corn is considered a bushel. And so, but like I say, you're probably in the neighborhood of between 550 and 600 on an average year. So the question is, the products that my corn that I produce goes to. About half my corn acres are contracted to a local poultry feed company, and so of course that means that it goes into chicken feed more or less. And then the balance will be, it could go to another poultry company, or it's typically you're going to go to a Mississippi River port to be loaded on a barge, and destinations unknown after that. The question is regarding if there are any uses for corn stalks, and yes, actually there is. They're up in, you don't really see it here in northeast Arkansas that commonly, but oftentimes after harvest, especially in your northern states, farmers can basically kind of put up a temporary fence around a cornfield and turn cattle or hogs to graze on it. And there's a lot of nutritional benefit from it. We typically, in this area, we like, there's nutrients inside those corn stalks. And there's, of course, organic matter, so we want it to go back in the soil to help build our soil quality. So that's typically why you see, in some form or fashion, we like for them to stay in the field. Some other things that are kind of cutting edge technology. There's a company I've read about in Iowa that is actually taking corn stalks and making pallets, shipping pallets, and they're the same structural integrity as your wooden pallets, but they're a whole lot lighter. So that, of course, would save on shipping costs. So the question is, what non-food items is corn used for? There's, like I say, just a long list. Batteries, cosmetics,
Something that I just found out recently I thought was interesting was Windex. There's derivatives of corn that are used in Windex. Of course, a lot of people would know this, but of course the alcoholic beverages, there's corn that is used in some of them, batteries. So much like soybeans, corn as well, just a long laundry list of items that corn can be used for.
Okay, so the question is corn a grain or a vegetable? And the short answer to that question is yes. So corn as on the cob as a whole is considered a vegetable. However, when you take an individual grain off of the corn cob and when it's used in your trail mix or your salsa, it is considered a whole grain. But to even complicate that, because it is derived from a seed or a plant, it can also be considered a fruit. So however you want corn to fit into your diet, corn fits in.
So the question, what type of corn is best for deer feed, and I have a little issue with deer because deer like soybeans, and so I'm constantly battling deer in some of my soybean fields. But to answer your question, typically, field corn that is grown in all of Arkansas, and then also sweet corn. They do like sweet corn. My daughters and I raise some sweet corn, and oftentimes I'll have deer hunters come and get the leftovers to feed to deer as well, and they say that deer really like sweet corn as well.
The question is regarding silking. Oftentimes you hear someone speak of the corn as silking, so that is actually part of the reproductive process of a corn plant. And so let's just take this for an example. This is referred to as the tassel, the top part that comes out the top. This is the male part in the reproduction system of corn. So if you look close at this ear of corn, these of course have dried down now, but this is actually corn silk. And so these, we're going to call them tubes basically, but they go to each individual grain inside this ear of corn. And so what happens in the reproduction process is pollen is released from the tassel, falls down these silks, which during that time will be kind of a white, there again, a silky filling, and they go to each grain on this cob. The pollen travels through these tubes inside of the husk, and then it fertilizes hopefully it fertilizes each grain on this corn, and thus at this point you can see here that we had pretty good pollination because of, and like I say, you can see how these are, they doesn't look like a lot, but these are basically these are the tubes, the silks, carry the pollen to each individual grain on an ear of corn.
Okay, so the question is asked as far as how long. If you see behind us, we have what we call grain bins. These are for storing grain, rice, corn, soybeans, all types of grain. And so the question is, how long can it be stored? The key thing when storing grain is to remove the moisture out of it. So corn is considered dry by your elevator, your feed companies, when it reaches 15% moisture. So once you get to that 15% moisture, you can store corn basically for an unlimited amount of time, years if need be.